I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.
Live, local, and letting you have your say. The Elias Makos Show. CJAD 800.
Well, what'd you think? You know, I did something good. You're going to host a debate. You close the text line. You don't want to see what's coming in while you're trying to host a debate. Elias Makos back here on CJAD 800. I hope you enjoyed listening to the debate or watching it. We were all big league on YouTube and on the CTV Montreal website. And now we're going to have some post-game analysis, as we say. We'll also be giving you your chance to give your 2 cents on what you heard. So we're continuing here with Justine McIntyre and Daniel Tran. They kicked us off on the Big Five and they agreed to stay back here. So guys, you were watching, listening over the last hour and a bit. Daniel, how'd they do?
Honestly, before that, thank you, Elias, and all your team for this amazing debate. I felt like you guys raised the bar. Finally, we were able to get into more depth in the discussion. So on and all, like let's say I use a boxing analogy. I think at the beginning, both parties were just testing both people were just testing the water. Luc Rabouin started showing who he is, showing like his story and everything. And then at the moment we're talking about mobility, this is where Soraya Martinez came with the gloves on, woke up on the round, and then the debate started to get heat up. So it's very exciting. Yeah,
the whole bike path section. And just judging by what had come out over the last couple of days, I sort of had the spidey sense something would happen. I think it did deliver on that front. Justine, do we have a winner this morning?
I think the winner is the Montreal population because, let's not forget that people are still saying that they don't know the candidates well enough, they're undecided and so on. So I think that this was a great format for people to get to hear from them directly. And by the way, kudos to both candidates for whom it's their second or in Soraya's case, her third language. So to be able to participate in a conversation in English, live, sitting next to each other, it's a lot to expect. And I think they both did very well. I also noticed a bit of a difference in tone when you're sitting next to somebody, as opposed to, standing up and giving a press conference. It's easy to get into nastiness. And we talked about that this morning on the Big Five. There were some nasty words exchanged yesterday, but not in person. And when the candidates sit next to each other, the conversation changes a little bit. Yes, they can disagree. They might disagree quite strongly, but there's more of a respectful tone. And we heard it in the wrap-up statement as well. Soraya Martinez reached out over the line and said, Projet Montréal, they've got their heart in the right place. We're both here for the right reasons. All of us, because there are other candidates out there as well, we all love the city. And that's why they're here. Everybody's trying their best.
Because there is also something to be said about when anyone in any type of, their heart is in the right place. They're just terrible at their job.
Right.
I mean, which is what you're trying to say, It's the way to get that in. Daniel, you had a scorecard here. You said boxing, they put on their gloves. Do you have a winner?
I think we're going to the championship round, and that's going to be on November 2nd.
So we got 2.5 weeks to come to that. So let me open up the phone lines here, 514-790-0800. I would love to hear from you right now. Do you have a winner? Did anyone score any points with you when we were talking about, I don't know if it's public safety or getting around town or our big discussion on housing? I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, because there is a clear distinction that came across here between the two candidates on how they'll deal with developers and rules and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's very clear. Montreal, whoever wins, Montreal's going to look very different after 4 years. Based on who wins here.
Have you noticed the references to the city of Vienna? Luc Rabouin keeps coming back to this. Now that goes back 4 years ago when there was a housing summit that was held jointly by the mayor of Laval and the mayor of Longueuil. And there was a lot of discussion around the Vienna model. The Vienna model in Vienna, by the way, 50% of the population, more or less 50% of the population, lives in some form of subsidized housing, whether it's cooperative housing or city-owned municipal social housing. So when Luc Rabouin refers to the Vienna model, that's what he's talking about.
And he's coming out and saying it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be paying attention. If he's bringing up Vienna and that's what he wants to do, it's a stark difference to, the North American ideal of where people should live.
Absolutely. And he also, the other city that name that he threw out was Toronto a couple of times. My hometown, by the way. So I felt a little sting, but he's not wrong about Toronto. The way it's been developed has been, has really driven prices up and has not been to the benefit of the local population. That's for sure. So a very clear vision from him about where he wants to go with development. He also talked about reducing permit wait times, something that both candidates have said that they would do. But Soraya Martinez was more clear about wanting to work in a partnership with private developers, and that Montreal needs to be more flexible, needs to open the door, needs to pave the way for development to happen here so that developers don't just cross the bridge and develop on South Shore or North Shore.
Let me just point out one thing here before we go any further. So we had the debate, we had the two front runners, and clearly you look at the polling, we do have two front runners in this debate. There were other candidates that didn't make the stage. When it came down to it, we had a pretty low threshold here. We had a couple of thresholds, but the 10%, that's pretty low. And the ones that were not here today at this debate were ones that could not clear the 10%. I know there have been other debates that they've invited, let's say, Craig Sauvé, but they haven't invited Gilbert Thibodeau. They're polling at basically the same number, 8 and 7%. So, I think the decision had to be made, and it was done early on. Like, here's the threshold. Anyone gets over the threshold, they will be there. But I should point out that the candidates that weren't here this morning, whether it be Gilbert Thibodeau, who is running candidates all over, whether it's
surprising,
he's got a very, very full slate compared to a lot of other parties out there. Craig Sauvé, who's got that 8%, but isn't running as many candidates, and Jean-François Cacou, all of them from Futur Montréal, all of them have been invited to come to our studios, and they will get an interview, and they're going to get a substantial amount of time that I think is representative of where they stand in the polls. So 514-790-0800 if you want to chime in with what you heard over the last hour, and if you've got a winner out of this morning, if someone has swayed you and you've made up your mind. So what do you think they need to do, Daniel, for the people that don't know? What do they need to do to seal the deal?
First and foremost is that everything will be in acceleration right now. So, of course, you can look at the polls and try to confirm your choices. But remember, what's happening in Labrador, Newfoundland right now? All the polls were pointing out for the Liberals to win. And then the big surprise, the Conservative came in. So, moral of the story, polls, it's one thing, but you got to get out and vote. And in order to get out and vote, you got to get informed, look what you need, look what you want for your families, for Montrealers, and do your homework. Look at the different platforms.
One thing that's been consistent, and you're so right on polling, right? But one thing's consistent, it seems like people do want change. Now, of course, Luc Rabouin can say, I'm not Valérie Plante, I am change. But is there anyone that has, an advantage here on the case for change? What do you say, Justine?
When it comes to change, I mean, we used to make the joke, le bon vieux changement, right? Because change is something that comes around every election cycle. There's always a kind of a voter frustration that sets in at the end of a 4-year mandate with any administration. And especially Projet Montréal has now had 2 mandates. So it's, 8 years of the same, of Valérie Plante. There's a certain amount of fatigue that sets in. People start looking for something different, a different way of doing things. So the change advantage is clearly on the side of Soraya Martinez. I would say also, though, that this could be to the advantage of those other parties that you're going to invite later on, the Craig Sauvé, Transition Montréal, who's saying, look, Projet Montréal was there. They had a very progressive platform. They didn't deliver on it. I'm the guy to do it. So, change can take us in different directions. I
just want to get to Maxime Cadotte, who produces this show. Maxime, you just have one little item. I want to get to the number of candidates here as we're going over that. Why don't you give us the numbers here? You've got them right in front of you.
Yeah, so Projet Montréal sits at 103 candidates. Ensemble Montréal has 90. Transition Montréal has 80 candidates. Then Action Montréal has 58, and Futur Montréal has 20.
I flipped the Action and the Transition there in my head. So thank you for that number here. Okay, does Luc Rabouin, has he done enough to say I'm actually different from Valérie Plante? What do you say, Daniel?
My take is today I feel like there's a shift in the conversation, because before it was more being on the defensive, trying to say like, hey, here's my path, here's my program. But today, and compared to other debates I've been in a couple debates, including on air, including at Chamber of Commerce, including at the International Relations Council. And in this case, he says, here's who I am. Here's where I work. I work in the financial industry. I work for PME Montréal. I work in France for Communauto. So now we know who we're talking to.
Yeah.
And that there's a confidence that you can build with the population. Now, that being said, is that enough today? The election is coming very soon, so we'll see.
So, one of the things that I'll say, and I'm just trying to go through the debate on what happened. If I have a disappointment, is that we told them, we had a section called Big Bold Ideas, okay? We told them. We said it's called Big Bold Ideas. We threw that at them. So there was a lead up. There was a bit of a setup. And of course, in my introduction, I was like, here's my big old idea. I brought back how the election of Jean Drapeau in 1960 really did change everything with the bold idea of a metro.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought that, and again, the argument can be wrong place, wrong time. 2025 Montreal is not the big idea era for the city. I get that. But I was expecting a little bit more on the big, bold idea. And I wonder if that goes to the fact that neither of these candidates so far have seemed to, caught fire with Montrealers, right? That they're maybe not getting those big, bold ideas out there. I wonder if you have a thought or two on that, Justine.
Soraya Martinez has consistently said, we can't dream until we fix things right now. And I think she's saying that because she feels that this is what she's hearing from Montrealers, that people are saying, they're not talking about wanting to bring back the expos. They're not talking about creating a new metro line or any of those big, bold
but then
things.
You'll get accused of being Codere. I just want to say, you know how that happens?
Yeah.
Like we saw that yesterday. Oh, you're going to bring us back to Jerry Tremblay.
Yeah.
Now that's honestly, it feels like kryptonite. Like to mention, bring back a baseball team. It's like,
Right.
oh, you're in favor of billionaires.
Yeah.
I mean, so I just don't see that ever happening in the current context.
Right, exactly. And so I think that she's responding to what she's hearing from the population, and what we heard from Rabouin, his big, bold idea, well, as we mentioned, was housing, and to make the city the most affordable city in North America, which is, quite honestly, that is kind of a bold idea, and especially if you're using Vienna as a model.
Let me scooch over to Robert on our phone lines. Hey, Robert. Robert, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, what do you want to say, Robert?
Essentially, I was involved with both parties. Look, if Luc stays with his same executive committee, there won't be change. My disappointment with them is they've had the opportunity to consult the citizens. They've had experts involved. The Mountain is the best example, which disappoints me. Mm-hmm. And if the same people making decisions are in place, then what can you expect to change? So essentially, what I've heard from Soraya today was very encouraging, and I think that's the pro. We need public involvement. Montreal hasn't been consulted with a lot of decisions that have been taken, and that's where we need to get back to.
There's always a good reason to not do a bike path, because there's always issue. It's impossible to have unanimity. I remind, I was the new mayor of the Plateau when we create the Rêve on Saint-Denis Street, and the team of Ensemble Montréal was yelling against that.
Yeah, because there was no parking space at the beginning. There was no parking space. No parking space.
And
we said we need to have parking space, and they changed it. And now we have parking space on Saint-Denis, and it's a great rev. Everybody's happy about it. But they listened.
Can I finish?
But they listened.
Where Montreal calls in and speaks out. The Elias Makos Show. CJAD 800.
Yeah, I got testy at times, and I think the discussion on bike paths is a prime example of that. It's CJAD 800, Elias Makos here, and we've just coming out of our big Montreal election debate. Asked Justine McIntyre and Daniel Tran to stick around as we analyze what we heard over an hour and a bit. Phone lines are open, by the way, 514-790-0800 on who won the debate. What did you think about what you heard over the last hour? Let me just, before I get to you guys, Justine and Dan, hang tight. Let's hear what Terry says. She's an NDG. Hi, Terry. Terry, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Who won, Terry?
I believe it was a waste of time. I think if people go back and listen to Valerie Plante's pledges and promises and see where that took us, nobody made a definite commitment on anything. It was we hope, we see, we think.
Terry, can I just tell you something? Like, listen. You listen to it. I totally appreciate it. Just on bike paths and what you heard, it became clear as day that there is a definite difference and vision, and one party is going to pull back, and one other party is saying, and they said it. Luc Rabouin said it. It's basically full steam ahead. So, and I get it, but and the other stuff on housing, when it comes to working with developers or a vision of Luc Rabouin saying we're going to be Vienna. I mean, clear distinctions and lines were drawn this morning. So I just want to say that, and just, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I took away. Terry?
Okay, not what I took away. I just felt that there was no real discussion on condition of roads. There was nothing definite. That's all I'm saying. There was a slight turn, but as I said, listen to Valerie Plante's promises 8 years ago and see what happened, and that could happen all over again.
Terry, thanks very much for the call. Thank you for listening, by the way. Okay, Daniel, Justine, want to talk about some of the points that stuck out to you. Public safety, we're talking about supervised injection, supervised drug use sites. And while they may have ended up on agreement, there was some surprise there. What do you say?
I mean, supervised injection sites is a contentious issue. Surprisingly, when Montrealers were polled, they didn't seem to think it was contentious. A lot of Montrealers seem to be in favor of supervised injection sites.
58% are in favor.
Yeah.
I'd love to poll the people that live next to them, right? I think if you live 25 minutes away from one of these things, it's great. Great idea. Keep them away from me. Fantastic.
That's the thing, is that supervised injection sites, there aren't that many of them. The ones that I pass by frequently are kind of a mess. And I wouldn't want to live next to them. Okay. So that being said, both candidates stated that this is necessary. This is something that we need in the city because it's a public safety, a public health issue. But, they didn't really have differing positions on that. They both said, look, it's a kind of a necessary evil. It's something that we're dealing with, a crisis on our streets, a drug crisis. The provincial government isn't doing anything about it. We at the city level have to have a responsibility to provide services to the people who are the victims of that crisis. But, it would have been interesting to hear a little bit of a distinction. What can we do better? What else can we offer in terms of service?
I tried to peg them down on who comes first, right? Is it the resident with the families, the taxpayers with the kids, or is it those who are facing terrible things like drug use? It was that was something where it's both. And I think what I want for mayors, I want to pick. I want someone to clear as day say priority 1, priority 2 in that order. We did not get that. But we did get something on children, Daniel, that I think the both of you picked up on.
Absolutely. And I think in this case, of course, they were playing on the safe side, and it's okay, at the beginning testing the water because you don't know necessarily where we want to push. That being said, you were successful in getting something concrete from all of them, was that children should be the priority. So just having that in mind, the way we design our city, the way we take decisions, now we have in front of us 2 mayoral candidates that will prioritize children. And I think as a society, that's a good thing.
And that means Benoit Labre, that's out. If you're going to pick children first, it can't go next to a school, I imagine. Let me go to Harry in Pierrefonds Roxborough. Hey, Harry.
Hello.
Hello. What do you say, Harry?
What do I say? The question about congestion is so easy to answer. We have a Two Mountains train that was supposed to open in October. We're mid-October, and we still don't have a start date. So you want to fix congestion. You don't put more bike lanes in an Arctic climate. What you do is you fix public transport. So that's one of the issues. I'm a long-time Two Mountains rider, and I can't wait for the train to start. So, I don't know why we're still talking about bike lanes. We built the bike lanes. It's great, but enough already.
Yeah, and Harry, listen, a point taken. And if it's enough already, you have a candidate who's basically saying that, and you have another candidate who's saying it's full steam ahead, we're going to go forward with that. You want?
Oh my gosh! Just on that, tell me about it. The Two Mountains train line is the reason why I moved from Pierrefonds Roxborough, because I knew that it wasn't going to be a 4-year project or a 3-year project as they initially announced. And here we are. How many years has it been, Elias? Like 8?
Yeah, long time.
Anyway, still no train. I feel your pain. It's a terrible situation because that was a great train line, very, very heavily used by anybody living along the train line. The reason why we chose to live in Pierrefonds Roxborough was because of that train. Public transportation is the solution to congestion. We have been underinvesting in public transit. Luc Rabouin talked about that. He talked about wanting to invest heavily in a network of rapid buses. But that's going to be hard to do, Elias, because we know also that public transit is suffering terribly from lack of ridership, falling funds because people aren't, and they're also announcing at the same time. And here's what I don't get, and we didn't get to this in the debate, but they're also announcing that they want to at the same time provide social incentives for people to have a reduced fare to take public transit at a time when public transit is lacking funding.
And who's going to pay for that? Let me read you one thing, on public safety, right? We did talk about the continuing, as I mentioned, high and sustained. I think that's a fair way to describe what we've seen over the last 2 years. And I have a note here from a listener, and, obviously with our listeners, we can see their history, and, some of them, they've got their names, and, they go back. And so I got a text message here. It's a little bit surprising, okay, from Tamara. And just judging by how they've handled this over the last couple of years, they write in this based on what they heard this morning. Luc Rabouin gets my vote because he's the only one who said anti-Semitism out loud. And he did not add Islamophobia into the sentence, right? I was really against voting for Projet because of the terrible job Plante did defending the Jewish community against hate these 2 years. Rabouin proved to me that he is different from the last mayor. So listen, I mean, and again, there are things that I'm not hearing that other people are hearing and vice versa. So I was interested in that point.
Just on that, I did notice that Soraya Martinez, every time she's been asked about the pro-Palestinian protests, she talks about communities in the plural, and she doesn't name any communities. She says communities are suffering. We need to do better to live together, le vivre ensemble. But I hear your listener on that because when you're not specific, you're speaking to everybody. You're speaking to nobody.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Let me listen. Stan, the man, he's an OG here at CJAD. Stan, what's your 2 cents here?
Yeah. Hi. Okay. 3 things which I didn't hear discussed: the perennial orange cones, which reflects the lack of coordination of construction projects. That's a major problem in Montreal. Number 2, the state of the roads has improved slightly over the last 20 years, perhaps, but you still have major roads like Sherbrooke.
Okay, Stan, listen, Stan, it's not, like there's, how many things we didn't get to? Like you have an hour.
Yeah.
You should see the stack of stuff we couldn't get to. That's okay. It's going to happen. It's impossible to get to everything. And to be honest, orange cones, like we know it. Everyone knows it. So that's like, hey, let's just have boilerplate talk. Stan, on what you did here, do you have a winner? Yes or no?
I don't have a winner. I think it was a draw, but I still want to change because I want to see what the new candidate can do.
Stan, be well. Thanks for that take, and you're welcome to call back anytime. All right, we're going to leave it there on that front. Daniel Tran, Justine McIntyre, thanks so much, guys, and you'll mosey back into the studios sooner than later.
We sure will.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.